Exciting time for weather forecasters nationwide. The GOES-R satellite launched last month from Cape Canaveral. It'll become operational sometime next year. This has the ability to scan the Earth 5 times faster and with 4 times more resolution than any other satellite in NOAA's fleet. For more on this giant leap in weather technology, we've got Charlie Paxton, Science and Operations Officer at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and our own Chief Meteorologist, Bob Harrigan. Thanks for both being here right now. So this is the biggest thing since Bob said back in 1988 when radars came along.
Yeah, we got the new Doppler radar back then, and it helped us progress with our warnings. We were seeing things that we just didn't see before with the old radars. And now we have a new satellite. It's faster, better, and it provides new products that we really haven't seen in an operational setting.
Huge milestone then for your department.
Oh yeah, it is.
And it's exciting for you.
And it's our department too, because I tell you what, this information that is going to be coming from this satellite is disseminated across the entire spectrum, not just to the government, but it will be available for private industry as well, and so that they can make decisions based on it. It will be available for television stations and broadcast stations throughout the world, not just us. So it's a global reach on this new information that's coming out. I remember taking satellite meteorology back in a long time ago, 1984, and the professor at the time who was teaching it said, you know, the satellite data that comes out at that point, there was so much that a lot of it wasn't even being used. Now think about this. This satellite in particular has more data with it that will be coming from it than all the satellites combined over the course of the past 30 years. So that's a lot of data if you think about it, and there's going to be a lot understood and a lot more research being done with all the data that comes out of it.
So in my cramming today, it's called the GOES-R, and then it'll be called the GOES-16 once it's in place. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it stands for the Geostationary Operational Environmental Satellite.
Yes.
Am I warm?
You got it.
Yeah, we have 3 up there right now. We have 13, 14, and 15, and then eventually when NOAA takes over, I think they then call it GOES-16.
Yeah.
So in basic terms, this is going to make your job easier?
Well, a lot easier, and you can help me out with this, Charlie, but as far as forecasting where tornadoes may be popping up, severe weather may be popping up, and how fog forms and where it may be forming, we'll get a little bit better handle on that. It has 16 different channels in the infrared spectrum as well as the visible spectrum and the near infrared as well. So those are all different wavelengths that the satellite looks at and can determine what kind of cloud formation is there, what kind of clouds, low clouds, high clouds, medium-sized clouds. On top of that, the speed of which this is going to be going at is amazing.
Oh yeah, it scans 5 times faster. And with the last satellites, we had 5 channels. Now we have 16,
right,
which will provide us different looks at the atmosphere.
How long has this been in the works, Charlie?
It's been in the works, I think, since about 2008. Yeah. But the final design was noted back in 2012.
And it blasted off last month, and it'll be ready sometime next year. Is there a chance, not to be a skeptic, that it might not connect? Might it not work? Is it definite it's going to be fine, no problems?
Well, I can't say that everything will work. I mean, there's so many instruments on the spacecraft, and some of them look at the sun and look for solar flares and that sort of thing, but most of them are focused on the Earth, where we live, and there are a number of different things like the lightning mapper. This is new. We'll be able to see from space not just the cloud-to-ground lightning, but the in-cloud, cloud-to-air lightning, the lightning that takes place a lot of the time before we get a strike on the ground. So we'll have at least some predictability here for lightning coming out of the clouds and hitting the ground.
And
huge for us in Florida.
Yeah, and more perspective on that also is that prior to tornadic activity, it's been proven that you get an increased lightning, actually increased lightning in the storm itself. And then just after that, the tornado sometimes drops out. So that's gonna help us a lot because we normally never used to be able to get cloud-to-cloud, intra-cloud lightning detection. This will help us with that. On top of that, you have to think about aircraft travel and how much money they're going to save and be able to figure out where the intra-cloud lightning is as well as the cloud-to-ground so that airlines can avoid those big storms where a lot of intra-cloud lightning is going on. And the ground-based detection model that we're using now doesn't see that. So it will help in that, save money as far as planes go and the damage. And damage in billions of dollars to aircraft lost as a result of lightning over the world.
Saved from damage, also saved lives as well. So we'll talk more about that next. But first, we'll take a quick break. Have more on this weather forecasting technology and our forecast after this. Welcome back. The topic, a new weather forecasting satellite like none other. It's called the GOES-R satellite. We have NOAA's Charlie Paxton and Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Indeed, an exciting time for both of you with this. It went up last month. It'll be functional sometime in 2017. Talking first quarter, second quarter, any idea, or is it still, pardon the pun, up in the air?
It's about 6 months out. They're getting a satellite into position. They unfold the solar array. They start checking out all the instruments. There's so many different instruments on it, but we'll be seeing the data come out 5 times faster than the old satellites that are up there now. We'll have 4 times the resolution, so we'll be able to pick up on elements that we couldn't see before. And so it's a fantastic piece of equipment. We can't wait to use it.
I know my friends in Buffalo will look forward to being able to see lake effect snow a little better. And down here, more importantly, you'll pick up on lightning and also hurricanes, obviously.
Hurricane's a big deal when it comes to this satellite imagery because this satellite will be able to detect rapid growth as opposed to the delay that it used to have, 15 minutes. Now it'll be sooner. It could be, they can isolate this on the actual hurricane and get information updated every 30 seconds as opposed to every 15 minutes. And this will give us a better understanding of how these systems grow and get bigger and stronger. On top of that, with the other data from our Hurricane Hunter aircraft, which also fly into the storm, this technology is going to help us in predicting where these storms may be headed down the future. On top of that, you saw me right there in one of the Hurricane Hunter aircraft as we went through Ivan, and I also went through Bertha back in 1996. Also, in weather prediction, we have now drones. We have the Global Hawk, which can fly many, many more miles. On top of that, we have the Coyote, which is a Coyote is a really interesting piece of drone technology, if you will, that will also help us in getting more data. And it's all about more data.
Well,
Exactly.
With all these bells and whistles, Charlie, do you still need a Hurricane Hunter to fly into the clouds?
Well, we do at this point in time. In the future, might be different.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I talked to someone about this. It's about 10 years down the road. It's more than likely that they'll be using drones, taking the risk of human lives. Although they've never lost a plane, and they've been flying into them for decades. But it'll take that aspect out of it. And these drones are able to fly for a longer period of time, get more information at different levels of the storm. And when you get different, more data at different levels, you'll have a better understanding of what the storm is and what it's all about. So it will help us.
Now, part of my job is to be a tax watchdog when I'm covering city and county government, and I happen to notice that this thing is not cheap. $300 million to launch it. Launch it. $1.4 billion to build it, the right word, Charlie?
Correct.
And these are tax dollars. Now,
yes.
Both of you can justify why this is a good use of tax dollars, and you, Bob, even could say that we get our money back in a way.
Yeah, looking at what they're talking about, and as far as the savings goes down the road in terms of getting aircraft out of harm's way when it comes to lightning projection, where hurricanes, if you understand, if we can better predict where hurricanes are going to go using this technology, and we can shorten that distance as far as the air rate goes, say 10, 20 miles, each mile estimated to be about $500,000 to $1 million in savings to the tax dollars. So yes, the justification is that $4.6 billion savings with this new technology, $4.6 billion. So you said the satellite cost to make $1.4 billion. The overall project, $11 billion for 4 satellites. So if you look at the cost analysis, you're talking about a savings more than what the actual cost to make it.
Yeah, the improvement in predictability so that people can get whatever they need to out of the way of a storm and prepare. Yeah, it's money well spent.
So to those of us watching from home, 6 months from now, will Bob's maps look different now? Or?
Oh, they'll look a lot different. To be able to see these thunderstorms bubble up in 1 minute or half-minute imagery, 4 times the resolution, it's kind of like looking at one of those old TV sets and going to a high def.
I mean, but already you can go right down to neighborhoods. Now what, inside windows?
With pretty much. You're going to see a lot of data come from these things, obviously. But that's a good point, Ray. It's better resolution and a smaller grid area, so to speak, so they can see minute details that are taking shape and developing as far as tornadic activity goes. There's going to be so much data and research done from just what this outputs, the output from this satellite, that will increase research and give us a better understanding of how tornadoes form and so on and so forth. So it will save lives, not just dollars, but lives too, and I think that's an important point.
Charlie, you've been doing this for a number of decades, I'm sure, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
And this is the biggest deal in your career, would you say?
It's one of the biggest deals. It is a big deal, and it will be very helpful, not just to us meteorologists, but to anybody that looks on the internet, wants to take a look at a satellite picture of a hurricane coming or a thunderstorm developing, that sort of thing. We'll be able to see it on TV.
And for those who just joined us, the previous line of demarcation in your world was back in 1988 with radars, you said.
Yeah, with that huge leap in radar technology that we all like to see, where we can look inside the thunderstorms and see tornado circulations. Now, with this, we'll be able to see lightning ramp up. That's an indicator of a tornado developing even sooner.
And severe thunderstorms as well. I want to make another point also about the radars, the data array radar too, which is going to be coming online soon. They already use it in Oklahoma, I believe. And you know, people don't realize it, but the radar that we see now that says live, it takes a while to process. So it's not really live in real time. There's a 4-minute delay or so in it. But with this new data array system, which is coming online too, as we look into the future of weather forecasting, is going to help us in that it only takes a minute to scan the skies, and it scans all levels at that point as well. So radar technology is also advancing incredibly, and will do so over the upcoming decade, which will also aid in predicting where tornadoes may be forming and where they may be heading.
So this is great for your storm center, but at home we can also see it on the internet.
That's a good point. You know, I was just bringing that up. You know, back in the day when I first started in 1985, I was the keeper of the radar from the National Weather Service. They sent it to us, and then we put it out there. No one had access to it.
Right.
Now everyone has access to it with their smartphones. And I tell you, a lot more people are going to these. It isn't advanced quite yet that you don't need us. You know, you still need a meteorologist to try to interpret things, because I know my wife, for example, was watching. I was on Facebook the other day, and it said rain for yesterday, and this was on Sunday. I said, no, there's no rain. But the computer automated programs that show forecasts on your smartphones aren't quite there yet. There's no meteorologist really to look at it and adjust it and change it based on their experiencing in the past. So I just want to make sure that we still have some job security as we get a little older.
Definitely. So, with the prediction of fog in the morning, we'll be able, with this new satellite, to see the boundaries of the fog better, to see the thickness of the fog better, and be able to predict when the fog will burn off better. And sea fog's a huge impact to shipping and to land operations. So if we can predict this better, it will definitely save money.
We just saw it last week when the Sunshine Skyway Bridge closed down for about an hour, 2 hours there, and that sea fog kind of rolled in without any kind of advanced warning. You know, with these new satellites, so we'll be able to see that, and also direct and redirect airline traffic, which will save money in the long run.
So it's a government satellite, U.S. owned. I imagine your counterparts in Canada will want to eavesdrop on this thing and somehow use it. Will they have access to it in Canada?
Well, it depends what part of Canada we're talking about. Because it's a geostationary satellite, it's above the equator, 22,000 miles up. So when you're near the top of the Earth, you don't get a very good view from this satellite. So they may be using the polar orbiting satellites that come around twice a day.
And that's interesting. The polar orbiting satellites are lower in the atmosphere, and they go from pole to pole, so they don't get the continuous data. They do a little bit more in depth in terms of 3D mapping of what's going on in the storms, for example. And I want people to know also is that the Europeans have satellites, Japanese have weather satellites. A lot of different weather satellites are out there. We have the goes east and goes west with a backup ready to go, and then this one becomes operational. They'll, I think, retire goes 13, and eventually, you know, they'll have 3 satellites looking at the United States.
But ours is light years ahead of what they have?
Well, that's another point. I read recently that this puts us ahead of the Europeans. The European model, by the way, did so well with predicting Hurricane Sandy, and this is what kind of got the ball rolling with a lot of the increase into the forecast modeling, too. They put a lot more money into it, and now the United States model is doing quite well and expected to do better in the future. All
right, up next, some final thoughts and also your comments on last night's topic about heroin addiction. Stay with us. And welcome back. Some final thoughts now on how the next era of weather forecasting will affect you. The GOES-R satellite. Charlie, Some final thoughts about this new toy.
Well, we can't wait to start using it. And again, it's going through the testing phase. And once we get it, we'll be expanding our data pipes to get more of this data in here because it's a tremendous amount.
You know, you said it's near the equator, so will it be more effective, say, in Key West than it will be in Portland, Maine?
Well, in general, as we look toward the top of the Earth, you get a skewed picture. So, yeah,
A little bit?
center of the Earth, the U.S. in general, yeah, great imagery.
Well, again, Bob, it's certainly great news for those of us in Florida with the hurricane threat and, of course, the lightning. It's going to change your life and ours.
Yeah, we saw the tornado last January. You know, this it was a flare-up of lightning prior to it striking and coming out of the clouds there. So it's going to help us in predicting where tornadoes are and give a better lead time for the folks. You know, in 1985, the lead time for tornadic activity and tornado warnings was about only 5 minutes or so, and now that has gone up to 13 minutes. So now we give warning 13 minutes in advance of the arrival of the strong winds associated with the tornado. So it will only get better in the future. And on top of that, this is going to help with agricultural communities all across this country. And we didn't really talk much about it, but with space weather, which is becoming a big deal and will do so in the future, that we can kind of tell where the solar flares are and kind of solar energy and these mass ejections that come out of the sun that can cause problems to satellites that are going around, and they can turn the satellites if they know that's coming and save and spare those satellites, as well as electric grids on the United States. So electric grids are in danger of these sunspots, if you will, the solar energy that can cause significant damage. If they know it's coming, they can turn them off and shut them down and save a lot of money in the future.
This is going to watch the Earth as well as the sun.
That's right, and space.
And space.
That's right.
You know, I don't think, Charlie, most people are aware that this was in the works, and it's going to change a lot of folks' lives.
It's been in the works for a long time, and this is the first of 4 satellites. So we'll see a couple more go up, and this is through 2037. The year 2037.
We'll always need a local chief meteorologist, though, right?
Oh, definitely.
and the Weather Service, despite efforts of privatizing it.
Let's take a sharp turn right now and talk about some comments about last night's program. Manatee's medical examiner is warning of a new threat in the fight against heroin synthetic opioids. Drugs such as carfentanil are on the rise, and they're 10,000 times more potent than morphine. In fact, it was originally developed as an elephant tranquilizer. Now it has been detected nearly 50 fatal overdoses on the Sun Coast just this year alone. Here's what some of you are saying about this emerging danger. Annie Brooks wrote, unfortunately, most of these opioid drugs, the addicts rather, began at the pain management clinic. Instead of trying to fix the problem, pain management docs are throwing scripts at people instead. Drug rehabs and pain management are the new money-making big business. Thomas White wrote, these people are using illegal drugs. It's not like these are regulated by anyone. It's a risk you take as a drug addict. You're at someone else's mercy. I'm not saying it's okay, but it is what it is without sugarcoating it. And Barbara Ebenson wrote, unless the addict wants to help themselves, anyone worrying, throwing money, or anything else does not work. It's a waste of resources. Having raised a child who turned to substances, I can promise you nothing matters to them but the drugs. If you want to comment on tonight's topic, go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/news7. If you want to watch past discussions, they're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. Thanks to both of our guests, Charlie Paxton from NOAA and our own Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. A short commute for you tonight to be here.